conflates older forms with various modes of modern exploration and innovation. To readdress tradition within perspectives of modernity and critical views of such thereof ensures the continuity of practice. As such is a vital component, most especially in the performing arts, when seen within the backdrop of a modernizing world in Southeast Asia, in fact in Asia. The term Ripieno in this regard is such a case in point. Derived from the European Baroque concerto grosso tradition of a dichotomy between groups of soloists or concertino and the tutti section or the Ripieno, the use of the term to name an ensemble made up of essentially virtuoso soloists who are located far from the mainstream of contemporary culture in the West is a deliberate bent into the dissolution of meaning. The dissolution may in turn also suggest a dissolution of musical structure and the broader formal schema rooted to the European practice, which characterizes much of the Ripieno's repertoire. We therefore find the Ripieno Ensemble's project on the Philippine Kundiman very meaningful, as our country exists within the crossroads of modern infrastructure and the various forms of disjuncture caused by divisions of social and economic class, caused also by perennial neo-feudal political structures and the dominance of transnational and multinational industry. So for a country, therefore, whose role in the global political economy remains essentially as a mere provider of cheap labor and cheap raw materials, a critical approach to the cultivation of traditions like the Kundiman is rather timely for the consciousness of its citizens. Ideas towards this concept began with Alexander John Villanueva, A.J. Villanueva, the conductor, with his explorations and experimentations that led to a groundbreaking performance in March 2016 of a concert intriguingly entitled Off Key, the Ripieno Ensemble in a concert of tonal music. While this concert featured arrangements of classical Kundiman songs, along with music from opera that is usually included in standard performance productions, Villanueva saw the potential in setting his gaze on the Kundiman and connecting this approach to issues of Philippine society and culture. The result of such reflection is contained in a conference paper that Villanueva delivered at the Hong Kong Baptist University at the end of the year of 2016. By the way, Hong Kong plays a very important role in the Philippines. Even from the Revolutionary times, this was the place where our heroes like Rizal or Marcelo del Pilar or even the later collaborators with the Americans, Aguinaldo, had hid from authorities. This was the nearest port by which so Hong Kong is really, it's like they meet in Hong Kong and plan out the revolution, something like that. And I hope this is not, well, there's a musical revolution we're trying to make here. So anyway. The development of the Kundiman might be seen as parallel to the development of the Philippines as a nation state, as some kind of soundtrack to the social history of the country. The traditional folk beginnings, which in some accounts appear as a dance form, in some as a love song, or in others as a war song, depending on what the term was used through those 300 years of colonization, is indicative of an absorption of Spanish cultural hegemony up to the time of the 19th century. This gave much impact towards about the end of that century, the 19th century, when seeds of a national consciousness among Filipinos were to fully emerge. A Hispanic Filipino consciousness, to invoke Elizabeth Medina's argument, arising from a Filipino ilustrado or educated class, merging with a revolutionary fervor and the armed struggle already occurring in the Philippine countrysides. And Kundimans like those of the song Joselinang Baliwag. It's a very popular song in the revolutionary period. It's about a woman, a beautiful maiden named Joselina from a place called Baliwag. It's a Kundiman. Was actually a rallying call of the Filipino revolutionary fighters. And through those years, the Kundiman transforms into a revolutionary song. Its invocation of love for a woman now becomes symbolic of love for country. When the United States took over colonial rule at the end of the 19th century, acquiring the Philippines from Spain for about $20 million, its most immediate task was to stamp out that Hispanic Filipino revolutionary fervor and national consciousness, while at the same time to re-educate, or better said, miseducate the Filipino people, and then create institutions that would make the country a modern, yet American-dependent nation-state in the 20th century. The building of modern institutions also resulted to the institutionalization of Philippine culture within the shadow of American colonial regime. As the revolutionary, forgive my paper from Manila, so as the revolutionary consciousness is being stamped out, the Kundiman once more metamorphosizes into an art form with romantic imagery and imagined local utopia. While the work of Nicanor Abelardo, its most profound exponent, truly raised the song form into its highest artistic standards, Abelardo was also among those who have struggled with the aspirations that rooted from a national consciousness left unrequited with the stifling of the revolutionary fervor by the Americans. It is with such critical views that the Ripieno Ensemble presents its program on the Philippine Kundiman. The project conflates notions of nationhood, of tradition, of local difference or cultural difference, and of modernity, and through its musical praxis, symbolically represent its critical views on all those notions mentioned. What the ensemble presents in this program invokes what Italian social theorist Antonio Gramsci would refer to as the national popular, or the dialectical interlock between understanding or intellectual constructs and feeling. Feeling, which is the most immediate schema or expectation of an audience in a musical experience. This view has also been expressed by Epifanio San Juan with regard to Filipino revolutionary literature in the late 19th century and early 20th century. Moreover, this praxis is further nuanced in the particular kind of music cultivated by the Ripieno Ensemble, framed within the European contemporary classical genre, a label I find befitting to the works of the likes of Helmut Lachenmann, Matthias Spahlinger, Brian Fernio, Johannes Schulhorn, Wied Führer, Gerard Gizet, Mauro Lanza, and many others of the so-called new music category. But this approach of notion of greatly challenging the gestalt of traditional harmonic praxis, for instance, while remaining within the modes of classical music. So we perform in concerts, we use dated music, and we publish and reproduce as possible, and we have acquired performance skills and specializations. That, in fact, is the social and cultural space which the ensemble, as well as the lab, chooses to initially occupy. What we, however, intend to advance this particular project is a socio-cultural dimension incorporated into the process of creative consciousness for the Filipino audience, for the audience in Asia, and perhaps for observers in Europe. This evening program seeks to achieve these goals. And I hope you enjoy the program tonight. Thank you very much. If you have questions or anything for discussion, I'm sorry it might sound too academic. I actually did this for my student AJ, who's doing his master's thesis. So AJ, this is my gift for you. Yeah, and if there are questions or anything, we have a little time, I guess, or any comments on.
You talk a lot about like the revolution.